Okay, this is Business 342, the practice final set 1, problem number 2. It says, which of the following must equal 0 if a project's IRR, internal rate of return, is used as the discount rate for the project? Now I'm going to go over each one of these just so you understand them. The first one they say is the PI. Does that answer the question? Well, the PI, if you remember, is the profitability index. Okay? And the profitability index is just basically the present value of future cash flows over the initial investment. Remember, net present value is the present value of future cash flows minus the initial investment. If it's positive, then it's an acceptable project. If it's negative, then it's not. This is a little bit different because it's the present value of future cash flows divided by the initial investment. So if this is 1 or above, so if the present value of the future cash flows is at least equal to the initial investment, that means that that it's a good investment, because in that case the net present value is above 0. If you think about it, if the present value of the cash flows minus the investment is greater than 0, that means your net present value is positive, which is good. Okay, in this case, if the present value of the future cash flows is greater than the initial investment, that means that your net present value is greater than 0, right? But it also means that this is above 1. So at 1, if this is at 1, that means it's the net present value is 0, because you subtract the initial investment from the present value of the future cash flows to get net present value. So if net present value is 0, this equals 1, the profitability index. If net present value is positive, that means that this number is greater than this number. So then this means that will be the PI, the profitability index, will be greater than 1. If your net present value is negative, which means that this number, the cash flows, is smaller than the initial investment, that means your PI, your profitability index, will be negative. Excuse me, your profitability index will be less than 1, which means your net present value is negative. So at 1, that means your present value is equal to 0. Okay, but that's not what they're asking for in this question. So the second part they ask about is, which one of the following must equal 0 if an IRR is used as the discount rate for the project? Well, the IRR is not involved with the PI, right? Okay, the payback period, let's go to the payback period real quick. This is on page 50 of your workbook. The payback period is basically just the amount of years it takes to pay back your initial investment. Okay, there's the payback rule, the payback period, the same thing. So in this case, you had an initial investment of $165,000. The first year there was a cash flow. This is the initial investment. These are the cash flows for each year after that. So the cash flow was $63,120. So that means that you still had $101,880 to recover. So that number moves over here. You subtract the second cash flow. You got, now remember, these can be negative. These are positive cash flows, so you're subtracting them from the balance of what your initial investment was. But if these were negative, you would actually increase the balance of your initial investment. Okay, but anyway, so the second cash flow is $70,800, so you still have $31,080 to recover. $31,080 to recover. Your third cash flow is $91,080. Okay, so that means you more than have enough to pay for this. So what you do is you take this amount, the amount you have left to recover, divide it by your cash flow for that year, and that tells you what percentage of a year it'll take to recover that. You know, it took 1 year, 2 years, and then a portion of the year. So how, 31,000 divided by 90,000 is 0.34 years, and then the 2 is the first 2 years added to it. So the 2 years plus whatever fraction of a year it takes to get the 31,000 over the 90,000 that you're going to get in the cash flow. So anyway, going back to our question, they're asking which one of the following must equal 0 if a project's IRR is used as the discount rate. Okay, the third thing they ask about is an AAR. You really don't need to know what this is. This is just the average accounting return, which is the average net income over the average book value. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And then the fourth one is, which of the following must equal 0 if a project's IRR is used as the discount rate for the project? The net present value. Remember, the definition of the IRR is that is the rate, the discount rate, that when you use it to discount the future cash flows, it gets the present value of those future cash flows to equal 0. So at that rate, the present value of the future cash flows equals 0. I mean, that gets the net present value to equal 0. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It gets the net present value of the future cash flows to equal the initial investment, which gets the net present value to equal 0. I was saying that wrong. Don't let me confuse you. Let me say it one more time. The IRR is the rate that basically takes your future cash flows and it gets those future cash flows to equal your initial investment, which means your net present value is 0. That's the definition of an IRR. Okay? So the answer in this case would be D, net present value. No, you can't see that. D, net present value is the answer to question number 2. On your practice final set 1, problem number 2.